see them in your own backyard, as Densey Clyne is just about to point out. And the bird spotters amongst you might note that she has a broken wing.
When birds are raising their young ones, an extra handout of food is a real bonus for them. The local birds have adopted my clothes hoist as a bird feeding table. They know my cat gets very upset about sharing her meat with them, and they know they're safe up on top there. Every kind of bird has its special food preferences. In an earlier program, we had a look at the parrots that can be attracted with sunflower seed. Well, parrots are certainly the most flamboyant of our garden visitors, but every kind of bird has its own special appeal. Sometimes you have to see them through the eyes of a camera to really appreciate them. From a distance, these red-browed finches look like a flock of any little plain brown birds, but close up you can see how really colourful they are. Red-brows feed naturally on grass seed, so the best thing to attract them is millet, which is a kind of grass. And there's one vitally important thing to remember with finches. They need to drink a lot of water. Pigeons and doves are seed eaters too, but they prefer wheat. This impressive-looking bird is a wonga pigeon. It's pretty high in the pecking order and big enough to hold its own in any company. Wongas are walking birds. Outside the breeding season, they only fly when it's absolutely necessary. You'll only have wongas visiting if your garden's close to the bush. The little peaceful doves will come for an occasional meal, but they usually seem to have their minds on other things. Here's a true bird of the city and suburbs, a native of India and Southeast Asia that's very much at home now in Australian gardens. It's the spotted turtle dove, the one that does all that melodious billing and cooing in the shrubbery. I think the wonga has racist tendencies. Well, so much for cereal on the lawn. The thing is to keep the feeding regular, but not to overdo the amount of food. Then the birds won't build up into numbers that can't be sustained without artificial feeding. With nectar-feeding birds, the best way to attract them is the natural way. Let the flowers do the feeding. That way you get two for the price of one. Colourful flowers and birds as a bonus. Grevilleas of any kind attract honey eaters, and this Robin Gordon grevillea is the very best of its kind. It just goes on, producing these clusters of big, nectar-rich flowers. The eastern spinebill, one of the prettiest and most trusting of the native birds, is the nearest thing we have to a hummingbird. There's less hum and more flutter, but it can certainly hobble long enough to get its curved beak into awkwardly placed flowers. It's no accident that bird-pollinated flowers are most often red, orange or pink. Birds have excellent colour vision, and they find these hot colours particularly attractive. Apart from their bright colours, bird flowers have other characteristics. The blooms are often clustered together on sturdy stems, and they have lots of nectar. Perched on the flowering spike of a callistemon, the white-cheeked honeyeater can dip into a whole lot of flowers at one sitting, which saves a lot of energy. This native Banksia serrata has everything a bird looks for, except the colour. But it is extremely rich in nectar, and birds recognise flowers by shape as well as by colour. Flowers pollinated by insects are often sweet-scented. Bird flowers usually lack scent because, unlike insects, birds have a poor sense of smell. Not everyone has a bush garden, and not everyone wants to grow native shrubs. Well, they don't have to be natives to attract birds. A lot of exotic garden shrubs are suitable. Even buddleia, which is usually grown for butterflies, attracts some birds. It has those convenient clusters of tiny flowers. So do the blue pea flowers of this South African Soralia. Well, food for the birds is one thing, but the other essential is a permanent water supply. You could install one of those very expensive and very elegant bird baths on a pedestal, but I think something like this fills the bill just as well. It's simply a terracotta saucer on a stump with a hose dripping into it. And there's one other amenity you can provide. On a hot day, some birds simply love a cold shower.
We are here in ordinary suburban Melbourne. And the curious thing is, I'm sure you can hear the bellbirds chiming away in the background. And you may well ask why. Well, if you look at the little birds there wandering through the canopy of the tree, you'll notice that the leaves hold some interest for them. They're eating something on the leaves. Notice the stripes on the leaves. That's the key to the survival of the bellbird in suburbia. What it is, well, you can find down here. It's a matter of picking up a dead leaf. This has got, of course, those stripy marks on it. And underneath the leaf are these incredible little, well, shell-like structures. They're called lerps, and inside those lerps lives a tiny little miniature cicada-like creature, which is called a psyllid. Now, if you've got a bit of forest around in the suburbs, the bellbirds can survive by eating these lerps, controlling them. Get rid of the bellbirds, you get awful problems with the psyllids going out of control in the gum trees. It's very important to have neighbourhood birds. Now, another group that often needs a bit of a help along are the elderly, the blind.